We're trying to. Great. Okay, so with that, I want to welcome everyone and we'll start off with self-introductions. And for those of you who may not know me, I'm Diana Nave and I chair the Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council, co-chair the Planning Committee at Northwest.
Yes, I would start reading.
Pat, you want
And
Pat Nave, Northwest
thank you.
Planning Committee.
Sam Ranchi, Northwest, land use committee.
to welcome Sam. He's a newly appointed member at Northwest.
Welcome.
Congratulations.
Javier Gonzalez, I'm part of Central, just a stakeholder tonight.
Adele Healy, Land Use Committee.
Brian Martinez, Senator Richardson's office.
Dr. Charles David Henry, Central.
Adrian Fernandez, Treasurer, Central San Pedro.
Nicholas, Northwest, Business Rep.
Henry Barsotti, Phillips Seats General Manager.
Heather Crossner with the Catellus team working with Phillips 66.
Alex Valente with Trammell Pro Company. We're presenting 625 South Beacon project.
Jeffrey Same with Trammell Pro Company as well.
Elise Swanson, Land Use Coastal San Pedro Neighborhood Council. And my day job is I run the San Pedro Chamber of Commerce.
And Doug Epperhart, President, Coastal San Pedro Neighborhood Council.
And let's see, people online.
Thomas, you know you're in my Google account, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to email you those presentations.
Online,
And I'm Robin Rudisill. I'm the chair of Coastal San Pedro Land Use Committee.
Alan,
Alan Franz, Coastal San Pedro.
Matt Kiocho. Is there Matt?
Kyoto here, recently joined back up with Neighborhood Council. It's good to be back.
And Pedro Chamber Office.
Jason,
Jason Herring, Northwest Planning Land Use Committee.
who do I miss? I missed the iPhone there.
Hey, yeah, it's Noel.
Okay.
Coastal San Pedro Neighborhood Council board member and committee member on planning, land use, and transportation, and I chair the Coastline Parks Committee.
iPad,
Frank Anderson, Central Land Use and Planning.
that was your spank. Garrett, you want to introduce yourself, Garrett?
Hi, my name's Garrett Teich, and I'm a stakeholder or just a resident in the San Pedro, specifically the Summerlin and Marilest area.
He is running for the board of Northwest San Pedro, and he is also going to be joining our planning committee. Probably at the next, probably being appointed at the next meeting. Okay, thank you.
Norm.
I'm sorry.
Tom Shorman, Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council, co-chair of the Planning Land Use Board Committee.
Great, so with that, we will move to our very first item. I want to say I did invite both Harbor City and Wilmington Neighborhood Council to participate tonight because of the discussion with Philip. But so far, I don't see anyone having joined us. They both said they were sending people, so we will see.
Stay tuned.
Well, I told them, they maybe because it wasn't first on the agenda, maybe they will join us. But our first item on the agenda tonight is an update on the development at 625 South Beacon. You may remember, some of you that have been around, the Holland Partners originally entitled this project. This is the block across the street from City Hall where the Green Onion is. It was acquired by Trammell Pro. Sorry for the typo, but for the spelling mistake. They made some changes in it and it's fully entitled. So tonight is just an update of their final plans. Trammell Pro, you may remember, was also the developer of Vivo on Harbor Boulevard, which has recently been completed, and where Colossus has just opened a cafe.
Nice.
With that,
Colossus?
What's that?
The Colossus?
yeah.
It's had a pizza from there. It's so good.
So that I will turn it over to Alex Valente.
And do you have the presentation by chance?
That's what I'm.
He's trying to get
I
it.
brought my computer too, just in case. but-
Desperately to do
Come back in.
We have it.
and to get it to the right spot without
It's just been.
revealing
Are you-
anything too secret of,
Are you emailing it to that?
I emailed it to Diana this
Yeah, well, there's another way of
morning.
doing it. Yeah, there's several ways of getting to it here. Do you want me to send it to
Maybe if
you?
you forward to-
No, doesn't do any good to send to me because I can't log on to mine here.
We had some problem with the computer.
So I'm
It's
trying to
loaded
send
on.
it to
With
somebody
this,
that's computer.
the interface tonight isn't working correctly. That's what was causing us problems.
Yeah, we were
Oh, no
all set
worries.
up, so if you wanted to look at my screen there, but we don't want to do that. Here we go. All right, so. See all the files right there. Must be on the bottom.
Can you see her? I'm
No,
blocking
you're
you.
right. Maybe stay right where you.
Looking for first is the seat.
Camera Pro.
I think I can see it here.
So hard to see
Yeah.
from way back here.
Maybe you'll get the.
What is it, Tim? What of it? Alex, do you know?
It's
Me too. I'm joining you.
Can you, Alex, I don't know if you can forward it to.
Oh, that I can.
May I back and I
I'll
may
save your
not.
seat. You're good.
There you go. There's the agenda. No, we do not. Mm-mm. We're gonna show them on the screen.
But you can forward
If you want to sit here after the meeting, yes, yes.
Or if you want to sit here, I can stand or go back there.
I think it's because there's so many attachments. I think it's taking.
It's not any of those attachments.
No. So who does Alex need to send it to?
I gave him my email address.
It won't let me do it from my phone because it's too big.
Oh, that may be.
Say what you're now.
We have coffee, we have pretzels.
Do you have jam?
I don't have gin. Sorry.
I just sent you ours.
Oh, thank you.
So, if you,
Diana, can you forward it to my email?
I wanted to, I think I was sending too
do
many.
you want us to go first while you get yours going, or?
Here else.
Anyway.
They got, yeah. Yeah, we could.
Yeah, there's no, I mean, you've got that one, while you're figuring out the other one, we could.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. We're happy to go first. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. We got
the presentation up from Phillips 66 instead, so we will start.
I just sent it to you, by the way.
This
email.
That one, okay, yeah, very good.
Writing three on
Is there a way to control?
You ready or?
And,
download
it, is this
You can just, you can't do it without this working.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's PDF.
Yeah,
So
there you go.
There you go.
Make this full screen and.
There was a problem with the
This is
interface
fine.
of the computers, not the interface, some kind of problem going on.
Or it's something with the interface with Tom's computer. I'm not quite sure what it is.
This is fine if you just advance
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
We'll give you a
Okay.
notch for you to
So-
go down.
Alex, is it all right with you if they go first? Okay, then since we've got that one up, we will move to item number 3, which is the reuse of Phillips 66 site. And I will introduce Heather Klausner and
Henry Gonzotti.
yeah, that last name I still don't catch, but yes.
We'll keep working.
And Phillips is going to be giving a presentation to all the neighborhood councils about the closure. The purpose tonight is to really focus on the part about the reuse of the land, because that's the part that this committee is going to be having the most interest in. And they're interested in getting our input and to begin the dialogue on how that huge piece of property should be used once Phillips is closed. So that I'll turn it over to.
Yep. And we were just gonna give a brief update on what's going on in the refinery, because I think everyone's interested in case there are questions. We can keep it on the shorter side, but just didn't want to neglect that, so.
Yeah, some of you, I apologize if you've seen this presentation before, because we've been on a tour to kind of make the information available for all the neighborhoods around the refinery. So some of you have seen this. I'm going to go through this real quick. So if you have questions, I can answer those. Go to the next one, please. You will see here a very big overview of the timeline, right? There's items from the time that we made the announcement to close the Los Angeles refinery, Phillips 66, Los Angeles refinery, all the way through all the activities that we're doing, all the activities that we're doing to keep running until October. How we're going to shut the refinery down, decommission the refinery, decontaminate the refinery, what are the activities that we're going to do with our employees and all that. And we will get to some details on that. And it's just like all the way to the future of this facility, which is the main idea for the later part of the presentation. Next one, in October of last year, we made a formal public announcement to cease operations on the Phillips 66 Los Angeles refinery. Phillips 66 Los Angeles refinery is Carson site, Wilmington site, and the marine terminal at the port of Los Angeles. We are ceasing operations at the Carson site and the Wilmington site. We're still going to keep running the marine terminal at port of Los Angeles. That announcement still holds. We're still planning to cease operations on the fourth quarter of 2025. And going real quick briefly to how we made this decision to close a refinery. As you can tell, and some of you probably know, these sites are more than 100 years old. You know, we've been part of this community for a long time. We've been very active to the community for 100 years, and our previous owners also of the sites. It's not an easy decision. It's very tough to make that decision. Took several months, several studies, a lot of people involved. At the end of the day, it's a business decision. There's different factors impacting that. Declining gasoline use in California, increased electrical vehicle penetration in the market. These refineries, all the California refineries, were built and designed for California crude. Well, California crude is declining as well. It's no longer available like as it used to be. And we have to make up our feed from waterborne crude, which is more expensive as well. If you put all these factors on top of upcoming regulations that we have and more constraints into our business, the profitability of our business was not there. And that model was not fitting to our overall company strategy. Purely business-driven decision to shut the refinery down. Now, we are shutting the refinery down, but we're still going to have business in California. We have a commitment to resupply the market. All the transportation fuel that we're making today in the refinery, we're going to resupply those same barrels to the California market. And we're still going to use some of our facilities that are still in place. I told you about the marine terminal. We also have a terminal in Los Angeles, and we also have a tank farm at Torrance. So all of those facilities, we're still going to be active. We're still going to have business. Phillips is still going to have presence in California. We still have business in California. We're still committed to California. Since we made the decision in October last year, we put up a lot of people to build this transition plan. As you can tell, it's not quick that you can shut a facility like that down. It takes some time, it takes some logistics and some effort. We're going to start executing that plan in the fall of this year. And it will take several weeks while we go unit by unit. There's between 25 to 29 units that we have to go through and shut these units down. What that means, right? We keep saying we're going to idle the refinery. Not a lot of people understand what idling means. Idling means that we're going to stop processing oil on each one of those units. We're going to de-inventory each one of those units. We're going to clean each one of those units and make them safe. And the piping between those units and the tanks. And we're going to stop there. We're going to inert that atmosphere, be sure that it is preserved, because we're not going to demo immediately. And then we're going to stop there. That's what, in a very brief way, idling of the site means. We're still going to have to build up on the comment that we were talking earlier. We're still going to have some tanks, a limited amount of tanks that we're going to need to keep moving product in California, available on Wilmington for a period of time. Eventually, we'll move away from that and we'll have the full facility totally idle. Next slide, please. One question or concern that we keep getting over and over and over, and is my main priority, is what we're doing with our people, right? In general terms, we have a little bit less than 600 employees. 400 of those are union hourly employees, operators, craftsmen. 200 of them are salary employees. We have put together different plans to be sure that we support each one of them. On top of these 600 people, Phillips 66 people, we also have on every single day around 300 contractors. We call them embedded contractors. These are people that are with us all year round and help us do our business. We also add those to our scope of how we're going to transition. Different things that we have done for employees, we held at least so far 2 HR benefits town halls to explain to everybody the process, how we're going to transition, how the layoff process works, how the benefits that we have can be applied. And we also have done several exercises with our union employees. We have a collective bargain agreement, right? And that agreement states all the actions that we need to take in case of a layoff situation. Well, we sit down with the union leadership and we were able to enhance that collective bargain agreement, and we add more benefits. We add quarterly bonus for retention. We enhance the several plan. We allowed some extra certifications to ease up the transition of them to another employer or different type of work. Training materials are available, and we have done several things like that. One important item that we're doing, and now that I'm here on the Chamber of Commerce, I'm going to make a pitch. We're going to do a job fair in the third quarter of this year. And we're going to engage with different industries, including the other 4 refineries that are still running, which will be a perfect plug and play for any of our employees to transfer. In other industries that we have reached, and they have reached to us, and they're interested in our workforce and our talent and the skills of our people. And through that, we're going to work with the local chambers to be sure that we advertise this. If there's any other companies or industries that are interested to participate, we're going to open the doors for that. Right. We're also working with Los Angeles City and Carson City Workforce Development Department to have the partnership. And during the last Northwest San Pedro also, I know we got offered some help and support and resources, which I appreciate very much. Next slide. I think we also did for the salary employees exercise that we call expression of interest. which is basically who is interested to move within the company to another business unit location. So we're completing that survey by the end of this month, by the end of this week. And then we're going to map and see what opportunities are available in other business units within Phillips 66. And if they're willing to transfer, we're going to make an effort to transfer as many as we can, or as many positions are available for them to backfill. So on the in-house contractors, I met with them and their management a couple of times just to be sure that they understand the process and we can work together to face also their headcount down, and they're going to be welcome to participate in our job fair with all the resources that we put together for our employees and our embedded contractors. I'm going real quick, so
Yeah.
yes. A couple more things, couple more slides, just real quick. Another question that we always get is exposure for the environmental and how we're going to manage regulation. Nothing has changed. Everything that you see there are all the agencies that we have to comply with, and each one of them have different regulations that we have to comply. That still holds today. That still holds through transition, through shutdown, decommission, decontamination. So that's not changed, and we know how to do it, and we have done it and proven that we can do it right. Next slide is a real quick remediation. There's a lot of questions about what's going to happen, how you're doing that. Remediation, we have an ongoing remediation program. The remediation program is not going to change. We own that liability for the life of the site. That's not going to change. We're still going to hold that. There's another potential remediation requirements, depends how we're going to redevelop the site. That's going to be defined by the DTSC or the water board. So once we get the redevelopment defined, we're going to get the requirements for that type of remediation, and we'll execute at that time. With that, I'm going to pass on to Heather.
Great. Thank you so much. So I am with the Catellis DECA team. Phillips 66 engaged us to kind of spearhead the redevelopment of the site. And so that's what we're doing. Phillips 66 still owns the site. They will continue to own the site. We are just managing kind of this next phase of what this site looks like. And so that's what I'm here to talk about tonight. This is going to be, a very transparent process. We will be with you as much as you want. We will answer questions. I think I gave out my business card to almost everyone, and I have it for other people who came later. But we really want this to be a really open process. We're going out to the community. We're trying to meet with everyone and talking, and we really want this to be a dialogue too. We want this to be a back and forth. Next slide. So you guys already know the process, so I'll do this real quick because you're well versed, but we're going to be getting community input, shaping a project. We'll do our applications, the environmental review process, and the public hearings. We expect this to take a few years. This is not going to happen quickly. The environmental review won't be quick. The public hearing process it'll take some time. So, I don't think anyone thinks this, but this is not going to be an overnight decision or an overnight process at all. It's going to be really comprehensive and thorough. And of course, throughout that, we will be, talking to stakeholders, talking to residents, talking to business owners and things like that. So next slide. So getting into the site, there are some, constraints with it. It does have an industrial zoning. It currently has industrial zoning. Under the new community plan, it will continue to have industrial zoning. So that provides some limitation. It also has a history of industrial uses. Obviously, it's been an operating refinery for 100 years. There's ongoing remediation. That remediation will continue, and it will actually expand with the redevelopment. Because once you can take off those structures and buildings, you can actually start remediating places where you couldn't reach and remediating the soil and things like that. This all being said, the interior of the site will probably stay in industrial use. But what we are trying to do is really limit that to the interior and not go all the way to Anaheim, And so on the next slide, you'll see what we are proposing to do is really have something that's an amazing asset for the community. That purple area covers about 75 acres, which is hard to understand, but something like, 44 football fields. It's huge. That entire frontage along Anaheim is 1 mile in length. So it is a really huge amount of property. And so what we want to do is go out to the community, to folks like you, and maybe we can have a dialogue about this of, what is missing in the community right now that could be provided there. We want this to make, a showcase, something that people are really proud of and excited about. And we have really an opportunity to do something wonderful. And so the next slide has kind of just some ideas to throw out there in terms of, what is it that you guys want to see? Is it, high quality shopping? Is it grocery store? Is it a sports facility? Is it, restaurants? These are just some of our ideas. But what we want to do is hear from you. And so that's what we're here tonight, to kind of start that conversation. And really get a feel for what it is that, will get people excited and that's missing right now. So with that, I think maybe we'll stop talking and see if people have, thoughts on this. Yes.
Would you first go back one slide?
Yeah.
As I started thinking about it, one of the things I thought about was the green belt on North Gaffey that we have now.
Yeah.
And it has a multi-use path, then it stops, right?
Yeah.
And your property doesn't abut it, but it's very close by. Can that green belt, I see you've got green up here.
Yes.
Is that the idea? Would that be to?
Yes, the idea is to have a path all the way down. The screen also shows some of the there's a pretty big grade change and slope. And so all of that, is going to be maintained. And then the idea is to have some pedestrian connectivity. Obviously, with a site that's south of us that we don't control, we can't do that. But we're going to get close. We get real close. And the idea is
It's a multi-use path.
Yeah.
It's not just pedestrian.
No, multi-use.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you've got that white around. Is that some kind of between the
blue and it's mostly circulation. It's so, we don't know what that exactly is going to be now, but the idea is our building footprint won't go into that area. Again, we're trying to kind of set it back and keep it more towards the interior and have it come all the way to the frontage.
I was hoping that was some kind of a buffer zone with trees in between the industrial and the other uses.
Yes, and there will be a buffer between, that front edge and the back. Yes.
Diana? Yeah, just as you're talking about possible uses for the property, one thing that pops into my mind is the fact that UCLA is expanding down here.
Yep.
They have some housing actually basically right there at PV Drive North.
Yep.
And in addition to the Marymount campus, but in future years, as they expand, I would think this might be a possibility for them, particularly in terms of trying to, in terms of retail and even restaurants and things like that.
Yeah.
Someday West Harbor will open, for example. When I saw amphitheater, I thought, gee, do we need another one?
We don't have, those are just ideas, this is what we need to hear back.
Yeah, this is blue sky stuff, so, but I throw that out as a possibility because, you have very close proximity to Harbor College, certainly, and UCLA's interest in this area and seeking to expand. We had a presentation from them recently.
Okay.
And I get the impression that, again, maybe 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, you could potentially see 5,000-10,000 students down here.
And we heard that before. We're actually reaching out to them. We're going to set up a meeting. Yeah, it's a great idea to see if there is something useful that, there's some synergy there. If they're looking for more land. We also heard that they've been doing a lot of capital outlay recently. And so now they're maybe taking a pause. But you're right, 5 years down the line, in their future planning, maybe this could be something.
One at a-
We've been through these processes and we know how long they take.
Yeah.
Hold on, excuse me, the next three put down in crayons. Alan, you have to unmute. Alan?
How's that?
There you are. Okay.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. I had a couple of questions and a comment just in terms of the anticipated UCLA enrollment. The Marymount campus is capped at 900 by the city. So that may limit the possibility of 5,000 to 10,000 students, and the housing on PV North is designed for, I think, 300 to 400 people at present. Of course, UCLA can appeal, can apply for permits to expand or modify those properties, but I'm sure they'd be interested in discussing it with you. Back on the slide about the decommissioning of the site, I was wondering two things. One, I saw a couple of newspaper articles that suggested that the state of California might be interested in the site. I was wondering whether that was somebody's wishful thinking, or if they had, so far as you know, made any contacts to explore that option.
Yeah, at the moment, we've seen the same article that you've seen. Nobody have reached to us. We are not changing our current plans at the moment.
Okay, and one last question. In that same slide on transitioning operations, there was a reference to intermediate products. And I was wondering if you could just give us a sense of the range of intermediate products that are covered by that.
Yes, in the intermediate products is after, we receive crude and we just start breaking and fractionating the crude in different components, right? Those components is what we call intermediate product, right?
Okay, so kerosene
the components
and stuff
that
like that.
feed other units to make it as a final product or blending component for a final product. That's what I'm referring for intermediate.
Okay, so it's stuff like kerosene?
Yeah, exactly. Kerosene, diesel, some blending components for gasoline, alkylate.
Thank you.
Pat, I think you were next.
A bunch of questions. With your operations post-closure, I'll call post-closure being shutting down the refining operations, what kind of an employee count do you anticipate?
We still don't have final numbers, but it's going to be very reduced amount of people to run the marine terminal and some facilities at the Wilmington site.
The 3.2 million square feet or something, I guess it's about 100. Actually, I think Delamo is about 2.2 million, so this is quite a large area. Do you have any phase one studies that show what kind of a cleanup problem you're going to have on the 75 acres? What are the ideas?
Clean up, you mean for remediation of the site?
It looks pretty clean. I mean, that's where your offices are, and it really didn't look to me like it's real impacted, but.
Yeah. The remediation scope will be dictated by the type of redevelopment that we're going to do. So it depends on what we're going to rebuild in that plot. That will dictate the type of remediation.
For clarity, I'm not sure I got the idea of what if there's a housing mix that's possible on this or not. Is there any?
I think housing is unlikely, just given kind of the remediation that has to happen. But if that's a strong desire of the community, that we can look at it. But again, given the zoning and kind of this history, I think it's not likely.
Right, and then your CEQA work, you'll do certainly CEQA work.
Yes.
On your redevelopment plans, but do you have to do any CEQA work in terms of your closure or your shutdowns?
We're not expecting to do CEQA work for that, but we're going through all the requirements for every agency to be sure that we're not missing any.
Trying to get a picture in my mind of what kind of business, what Phillips is going to look like post-closure. you'll have the tanks, will you be using the tanks maybe for hoteling finished product, either coming into the marine terminal or possibly hoteling for other refiners in the area? Will they be storing material?
Mainly marine terminal. So the resupply plan is import model through the marine terminal to our Los Angeles terminal, Torrance Sound Farm.
Do you have an estimate of what your product mix will look like, as what it looks like now and what it looks like?
It will look very similar. Right, we all the transportation products, and when I say that, I mean gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel will going to make up. And when I say diesel, it will be mainly renewable diesel, and when I say jet, will be mainly SAF, sustainable aviation fuel.
One of the controversies in this town is the Rancho, which is not yours, but you also have a few LNG tanks here, LPG tanks on the west side of the terminal, and some of that stuff is coming from other refiners by pipeline, as we understand it anyway. Do you understand it that way too? Will you be bringing in any liquefied oil and gas or LNG?
Not after we cease operation. In everything that is in our tanks, which are a lot more smaller than Rancho, it's produced in the refinery. So when we cease operations, there won't be any product built in there. And because we're going to bring final finished products to this market, there's probably not going to be a need to keep using those LPG tanks.
I need some clarification on the tanks that you're gonna keep to use for hotels. Are those, did you say on the Wilmington site, or those the Carson site, or which?
The Wilmington site, mainly a limited amount of tanks for a short period, for a few years.
Okay.
And this is not after the redevelopment. This is just until something,
until-
it's not forever. It's
okay.
temporary, just while this whole process happens.
Okay, that's a good clarification.
Yeah.
As we transition this to an import model, there's some tanks that we're going to use in a temporary basis, but eventually we're going to phase that out. And then it's fully developed.
Once the new project is approved, all of this will be removed, demolished, and
Just for clarification,
Yeah.
are you looking at a multi-phase kind of redevelopment? So 75 acres is your initial development, and eventually as you will you be taking tanks out as you store elsewhere?
It'll be phased, but all of the demolition is gonna happen at once, all of the grading is gonna happen at once. And then in terms of the construction, that will be phased, but we're not gonna be leaving any tanks. Everything will be taken down immediately, as soon as the redevelopment is approved.
We have a question.
Yes.
And then two on Zoom after.
Yeah, point of clarification, I understood you to say that the remediation plan is incomplete at this time?
No, we didn't say that. We have ongoing remediation, and we've been doing for years, and we're going to continue that remediation of ground soil level.
Do you have reports of what's been remediated at the point now?
Yes, all that is available on public records. We can send the link if you are interested to see. Yeah, we'll send the link.
And future liability issues are relative to this project also?
The current remediation that we're doing today, we're going to continue for the remaining life of that plot. We own that liability. Phillips is its own that liability. That's not going to stop. That's going to continue the same way we're doing it today. The extra requirements for remediation that will be as a result of redevelopment, we'll have to define that once we have the redevelopment defined.
And you can make those plans available to us?
Eventually, yes.
You say the ones that haven't been, to this point, once kind of like the tanks are removed and once there's there'll be additional testing that happens that you don't have access to everything, but those will be, defined and then made available once it's.
And those are available where?
We can send you a link to what's,
Did you take all of the responsibility, or is there a tail left over for Union Oil and others that had the refinery before you?
Well, right now, Phillips is its own everything.
Okay.
Okay, the next person was Jason Herring.
We can send a link to Diane and then she can.
And I'll send it out to the committee.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Jason?
Hi, Can you go back to the map, please?
The aerial or the,
The overhead map of the area.
This one?
That shows your partitioning of it, I guess. Yeah, this.
That one?
Maybe let's go to the other one. I kind of know where it's at. Go to the first a little bit zoomed out. So I don't know if you know about LA Metro's Vermont Corridor project, but it kind of ends up terminating somewhere up here off the map at PCH. And we have a potential for a corridor that would come down here and connect. Oh, the map changed while I was moving my mouse. We could use this entire frontage here as a route for light rail into San Pedro. The project, Vermont project, right now they're scoping between grade separation, buried, whatever, but they're going to be as far as PCH in the phase they're currently operating on. Additionally, the light rail, I forget which line it is, the one, the former green line is currently funded through downtown Torrance, will also terminate around PCH. It's going to join up with the Vermont corridor, kind of in this area up here off map. So that provides us with just a little stretch of corridor we need to connect to this right away you have, where there's already a rail line, which we could use for light rail getting towards San Pedro. Of course, we've been advocating for light rail to San Pedro since as long as I've been here, and it takes LA Metro 30 years to build anything. So it's not a bad idea to have a conversation with them now about would this fit into their long-term view to preserve that rail to potentially connect to San Pedro, because that wasn't even on the, no one ever thought you'd be closing the facility, so that wasn't even in the realm of possibility before utilizing that. So that's one thing I'd like to explore.
yeah, that's, and Diane has my contact information, so if you want to share it, happy to talk to you. And it's to schedule a separate call to do this.
I'm gonna put it in the minutes so that everyone has.
Yeah, please, yeah, just reach out and we can talk about this more.
And I can give it directly to Jason.
Sure, and also, I know you have a tunnel here underneath the 110 somewhere over here where
Yes.
it's walled up, and it's also a rail tunnel. So that gives us a potential alternate route that could come through here and then get down towards us this way, because there's rail all along the waterfront there. So there's two ways to get, and there was always a little bit of a question as to how to get past this area without taking some of your property with LA Metro to get to San Pedro. And now with this closure, it gives us two potential routing options to get there. So I think it's really interesting and potentially exciting for a longer term plan to get light rail to San Pedro.
Sure.
Regardless of, let's say the other route is used, or let's say they decide they never want light rail to San Pedro, that tunnel is a great connection between each side of the 110, since there's very few connections to get across it or over it, right?
That is exactly what we are exploring, trying to use that tunnel, either expand it, do a new one, so that you could just go right onto John Gibson and right onto the freeway.
Yeah.
So we're exploring exactly that. Yeah.
Exactly. So some years ago, we discussed putting a tunnel in under the 110. It didn't get very far, but coming up, I think it is this road here, where you have the warehousing facility. Rather than having that road come up and turn or wherever it goes into a parking lot, you could tunnel under at that spot. So we'd actually talked about this to try to get some of the truck traffic from having to come all the way down this way through, Gaffey and in that mess of an intersection near Channel, get the truck traffic off there, let it shortcut and get on to Gibson and keep the traffic off.
That is exactly what we're looking at. Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, so I love that concept. Let's talk about.
I'm glad we're on the right track.
Awesome.
Right.
But in parallel to that, along the light rail path, there's enough easement, which I think you probably have the luxury of having a green belt with bike paths and all this stuff, so you can have bicycle traffic as well as a light rail traffic.
On Gaffey.
Yeah, well, on Gaffey or even the other route,
along
Anaheim or wherever we're going, right?
No, absolutely agreed. Yeah.
If the train comes down this track here, and we still have a path here through the tunnel, you could have a path here to connect the whole green belt into Wilmington's park. So we could have a uniform connection this way too. So we have non-traffic requiring paths for people to navigate the system. Get to the nice park over here up by Harvard College. So that's another potential connection there.
Okay. The next person is Matthew.
I have a couple more comments.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jason.
So Another question is, has Harbor College expressed any interest in any of the properties since they're adjacent to it?
We just talked to Harbor College, the president, Dr. Dorado, a couple days ago. They're not interested in terms of land, but they really want to help, train future employees, maybe help retrain existing Phillips employees. He was talking about, is there a way to get a direct connection between Anaheim and the back of their college? But we don't own that land, so there wasn't a lot we could do about it, but he was wonderful. And we were talking to him about like just kind of other synergies that could happen between the redevelopment and the college.
Okay. And my final comment is, if you're considering things like grocery stores, and if you look at the distance, the nearest grocery store for Wilmington, this area is pretty far to get to a proper grocery store. They've only got kind of tiny little market. So that's not a bad idea for that area. But I would like to stress, if you put entertainment or anything there, that I know you say it's difficult to remediate for residential, but we're in a housing crisis, A, so we definitely need housing, but B, get another facility where people don't have to drive to it exclusively. Please, where people can live and walk and potentially work close to each other. So we don't have to get a little bit out of our car requiring centric culture that we could get someplace. So highly, maybe you can't have just R1 residential, but you might be able to get mixed use or some kind of zoning like that with a zoning change. They're more amenable to mixed use where you still have some retail and then housing as opposed to completely housing. So just another thought.
Yeah, got it.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Matthew?
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick question and a comment. What is the time frame as far as for that open area having an initial plan put together, kind of judging, how long do neighborhood councils have to kind of think about this and throw out ideas before an initial plan is put together?
We would love to get input as soon as possible, because obviously the whole thing is going to take a long time. We'll be back again next month if you want us to. We would like to use the spring to really kind of dig in and get people's thoughts. Obviously, again, this is a long process. It can evolve, it can, change and be shaped, but, we're trying to get something cohesive together, this spring, next few months. So really, that's why we're just kind of out and going everywhere and talking to everyone we can.
Okay, so it sounds like months. That's good to know.
Yeah.
At least get some ideas out there to you guys. And then comment, I know some ideas have been thrown out there. One idea I'd like to throw out there is maybe potentially a regional library. I know there's some smaller ones, but we don't really have anything big, kind of on par with, Torrance's, Geisert Library, which is big and beautiful. Maybe something like that where we could have, and it's also close to Harbor College. Maybe an interesting idea to explore.
Got it. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. I'd like to suggest, I'm going to see how people feel. We did something when we were doing with the PIP recommendations to the port. We had on first Thursday. Do you know about San Pedro's first Thursday?
No.
First Thursday is an art walk. It's when everyone comes out and walks around town. So we had a kind of an open house on 6th Street where people came in and gave input. And I think that maybe something like that would be really good. And maybe you and I can talk about kind of what we put together and how we did it. And I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of people going, yes, around the table.
Actually, Diana, what would really be a good idea, I think? Put up a dedicated website.
We're doing that.
Okay, basically saying, what are your ideas? What would you like to see? And I mean, we can help you publicize that. I mean, my neighborhood council, he does a regular email to 1,000, folks in our area.
Yeah.
I mean, and the others, I think, have comparable lists. So, I mean, you cover, and I'm sure Wilmington Neighborhood Council does.
Yeah.
We can help you get the word out.
And we just got the flyers done today.
Yeah.
So we have flyers, we'll be using that, with all of our contact information, putting that out there. So, and we're working on the website now.
And I did have one other quick question. The buildings, the administrative buildings, the old 100-year-old buildings.
They're not quite 100, but yes.
But they're old.
Yeah.
Any thought about adaptive reuse or historic reuse for those buildings? Integrating them into something that would.
Yeah. We have been thinking about it. We have been looking at it. The problem is they're kind of right in the middle.
Yeah, I know.
And
I know.
it's,
That's why, yeah.
so like if you want to do like a grocery or a really big, you know, kind of community gathering space, it's difficult to kind of plan around them. And that's the.
I know, that's why, you know, I mean, 77 acres is a pretty good chunk of territory. And, you know, frankly, in terms of retail, entertainment, et cetera. Yeah, personally, given everything that's in that proximity.
Yeah.
Grocery stores, Target, Home Depot, I mean, they're all right there now. And, you know, we're getting Habit Burger now is coming in. Other than drive-through Starbucks, I don't know what in particular in terms of retail or you know, or food would necessarily, unless you create, and this is why I mentioned UCLA again, if you have a regular student population.
Yeah.
Using another stick.
I will say our number one request right up there at the top from our cruise ship passengers that I've been working with for 11 years now. Luxury outlet mall or outlet, some type of unique like cabazon experience. We send them, put them in cabs and send them all over the
You
South.
gotta have the retail traffic to
Well,
support.
I'm just throwing that out as a top request that our cruise ship.
And
like everybody.
That's like a great idea to me.
Thank you.
Interestingly enough, there was a bidder on the West Harbor is, there was a bidder who was interested in doing a mall, so they thought the business.
Yep.
Pat.
If you created a heat map of people movement and, you know, concentration of people, probably the number one in that area would be Kaiser Permanente Medical Facility. I don't know.
Yeah. We're going to be speaking with them too. Yeah. Yeah.
Jason, is that an old hand or?
No, that's a new one. I have one other thing I forgot about. So this area here is probably the worst intersection in anywhere in the 310 area.
The 5 points.
5 points. And can you see the little circle I'm drawing? I would love to see a traffic circle.
Oh, highly controversial.
Oh, what?
Traffic circle.
Oh, yeah.
Where?
That is it may be- it's only controversial for people who've never driven on one. Once you're used to them, they're so much more efficient.
Yeah, I'm shining up now.
We'll remind you that if there's any side comments, they all get picked up on the mic, and so it makes it really hard for them to hear whoever's speaking, the side comments.
Yes, there's ample free space here, and now that the property from this position is open, we could really easily put a very nice traffic circle in there. You could make it beautiful with some centerpiece, you know, flower or some arrangement. But really, sitting at that light, waiting for us infinity change.
Yeah.
It's terrible. It's awful. So that would be a huge.
Sam.
Yeah, a couple questions. For the industrial part of the project, have you identified what those industrial uses may be?
We're still looking at it right now. So we're still kind of figuring out what that's gonna be. But you know, probably something along the lines of some warehousing, things like that. And it, again, because of, you know, all the concern that comes with trucks, we are, as we talked about, we're looking to do a direct connection to the freeway in some way to keep those trucks off of the local streets. So, you know, either through a tunnel, another tunnel expanded, maybe some improvement to the on and off ramp, but we have, I think, like looking at interviewing like 3 civil engineering firms to look at this and get really creative about how to get trucks, you know, going right onto the freeway and off of the streets.
I did a presentation on this about 4 years ago. I can dig that up and we can talk about it.
Sure.
And for the community portion, do you have any idea of what the density of that would look like? Like what scale of buildings are you thinking?
For the what? For the which part?
The community portion?
What scale of buildings? Like how?
Yeah, like, you know, are we looking at like 5-story buildings? Or
No.
single story or?
No, I mean, I think retail is usually single story. So, I mean, if it's some sort of entertainment use or sports and rec facility, that might be multi-story. but largely, you know, one story.
With surface parking?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Is there anybody else? Yeah, Javier.
I just have a comment. I think the idea of commercial space would work well with, you know, like you were saying, the outlet. Maybe a mixed use, as Jason was calling it to. That would bring in the component of some housing while allowing the commercial space. And honestly, if you put it there, people will come. I mean, if you look at Citadel, there's really nothing around there. People are always packed in there. So we don't have anything like that in the area, which would be great.
Okay.
That's something we don't have.
There's an interim control ordinance, you're probably aware of it, just passed last June, that prohibits expansion or creation of truck-centric, you know, anything that increases trucks.
Yes.
And you're in the Wilmington Neighborhood Council area,
Yeah.
and boy, you mentioned trucks over there, and your ears really perk up.
Yes, I know. And that, I think, once they adopt the community plan and the community plan addresses it, I think that addresses the moratorium, but I hear loud and clear and the concern that's underlying it, totally understand. And we're trying to address that. Understood.
Okay, just, I'm not seeing any other hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is the beginning of a conversation.
Absolutely. We'll be back whenever you want. We can come back, you know, next time. Yeah.
And we'll talk about this idea of doing something at first Thursday, which I think would be
Yes.
a really good.
Is that, so that's the first Thursday of the month? Is that?
Yeah, maybe April, not March.
Okay, yeah, please, you have my contact information for.
So I'll give you a call and we can.
If anyone not
We
else.
have a big event, that's Thursday in April.
Yeah, I think first Thursday in April would be.
No, we have.
We need an envelope.
Yeah.
You got it? Okay. Feel free to reach out.
That,
Yeah, of course.
doing this?
Potential.
Oh, okay. Okay. Let me-
We want to stagger the times.
Yeah.
Send the links. I got you.
Yeah, we'll send you the link. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
Oh, good.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Anytime. And you'll see us out there.
Thank you.
I get the
Bye, thank you.
the environmental links.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, sounds great. With that, we'll go back.
And thank you for letting us go.
Yes, Alex, we took your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's going second is, it's gonna look a little nicer, I think, as a.
There you go.
What a beautiful rendering.
Thank you for your patience, Alex. So
We're all trying to figure out where the luxury outlet mall is.
that's right.
We're gonna have a beautiful retail, maybe another bakery right there on the corner. We shall see in 3 years. So my name is Alex Valente. I'm here with Jeffrey Sang, we're part of the.
Can you make
Pro
that
Company.
bigger? It's very tiny on the screen. Can you please make them bigger?
Make it bigger.
Interesting photo.
Who is that? And
Robin.
yeah, no, I'm glad Robin's speaking up.
Yeah.
It's in presentation mode, so
Well, I'm not sure.
I don't know if we.
I have a feeling Robin needs to move some stuff.
You're sharing the speaker notes side where it has your notes, not the presentation side of the speaker presentation.
Oh, yeah, no, I see Jason. I'm not sure how to solve that on a one screen laptop. It's not mine.
All right, we'll make do if it's hard to do. Thank you.
Well, just go out of presentation or go out of this mode, go through the slides. and get there. It's really small. Just end slideshow and just go through the slides maximized on your screen.
Here it is.
And slideshows at the top.
Yeah. I want to see if I can. Okay. There we go, that's right. Okay, we're gonna go. Is that better, everyone?
Thank you, Brian.
There we go. Thank you.
Nice job.
You're invited to every meeting.
Okay.
So do you go to the next one or?
Maybe keep it on the. I was just gonna introduce ourselves and Trammell Crow Company. So we are the largest developer in the country, I think, by, I guess, a number of different metrics, but we take pride in being very local in our efforts. So Jeffrey and I are part of the Southern California office. We're based in El Segundo. And we've been in business here, I guess, in Southern California for over 40 years. not Jeffrey and I, maybe together, but I've been with Trammell Crow Company for 12 years now. I'm a principal in our Southern California business unit, and Jeffrey just joined us actually
Almost 2 years ago now.
2 years
next
ago
month.
from the architecture side. So he worked at KFA, which was our architect on Vivo and Harbor, which is the project that we just delivered TCO on Fifth and Harbor, and also the architect on this project right here. So we've been in the San Pedro community for a number of years now. We're very proud to be here and excited for our next project here in San Pedro. So for anyone who doesn't know, 625 Beacon is right there on the corner of 6th and Beacon. It's kind of right behind City Hall. It's right across from Holland's Harborfront project. It's right in front of the Crown Hotel. And we actually don't own the site just yet. We have it under contract with the seller, a nice gentleman whose family owns all of those buildings on that square city block. But we've been very hard at work redesigning the whole project that Holland Partners had. And we had a very successful area planning commission hearing December 17th, where our updated design was approved. And we're excited to present it to you tonight. So with that, maybe we'll go to the next slide. It's got some content.
A quick question.
Yes, sir.
What's the start point of this project? What year?
Like to start construction?
What's the start, the conceptualizing?
Well, gosh,
Oh, you missed my lead in. This is a project that started a long time ago.
Holland.
It's just now been finally approved with some changes.
So yeah, Holland Partners, I think they got into this site like in, I want to say like 2018, 2019. They entitled a different project. We actually have some kind of comparison images to show you. They went through, full long CEQA process. They went through an appeal. And then basically they weren't able to perform on their proposed project for a number of reasons. So they fell out of escrow with the seller. And then, we kind of raised our hand and cut a new deal with the seller. And we've been working on this redesign for probably about a year and a half now.
When are you thinking you're gonna close escrow?
So right now, we're hoping if everything goes right.
Yeah, otherwise it's a lot of dead money.
No one, no one wants to have dead money, but we think by the end of the year.
Till the end of the year.
Yeah, and we're full speed ahead now. Now, ever since we got approved in December, we're full speed ahead with a full consultant team. Just basically spending a lot of money and also spending a lot of time and energy trying to get the project right. And I could talk about it, but we're really, really focused on not only kind of getting the units and the amenities right, but really getting the experience, especially on 6th Street. We're like really focused on having some, I was gonna say, not kick butt retail. So we love what we've done over there on Fifth and Harbor with Vivo and with Colossus. And we've been spending a ton of time on that corner retail space, for example, just to make sure, we have a great retail tenant who wants to take that space and kind of activate it. So
You're making it a little bit smaller, the project? Let's let him give, sorry.
Yeah.
Question.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
We're also excited.
Next slide.
Next slide.
So, yeah, for folks who don't know that, so that's our Vivo on Harbor project there. That's the Holland Partner project right there, 550 Harborfront. You have the, I think it's called the Port Side Inn now, which is the motel right there on the north side of 6th Street. And then of course you've got City Hall and CD 15. You've got the new Piazza Miramare, which is the kind of corner park right there. I like to show off my Italian if I can. And then, and by the way, we named our Vivo project. That means I live in Italian. So it's like I live on harbor. It was like our very clever play on words. And we don't know what we're naming this project yet, but that is this full city block right there, which we're excited about. We think is a real opportunity to have frontage on 4 sides, which is a pretty unique thing in LA. So a lot of our design sort of addresses that. Maybe next slide. And maybe I'll hand it over to the guy who designed it to talk about some of the design attributes.
Oh, yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, this project in general, we're really leaning into that experience along Sixth Street, right? So similar to the Vivo project, we have that arcade area along Harbor. We have the same experience, but I think even larger and more enhanced all along the full length of Sixth Street. So kind of, the spillover, that is gonna be landscape, it's gonna be amenitized. It has, again, the retail space, the restaurant space on the corner, Beacon and Sixth Street facing the piazza, right? Spill out over outdoor dining, things like that, really activated corner. So this is kind of a big focus for us. And, we're still early days in some terms of making some adjustments, but really excited for kind of what we're developing, right? What we're finding, right? In terms of the building in general, there's a really playful nature, right? Some energy, some color. Basically a large courtyard on the podium level, cutting right through the project. So air, lights, a large pool deck on the south side fronting 7th Street. And you'll see that in some of the floor plans later on, right? The barbecues and beautiful trees, so on and so forth, right? And then really, taking a lot of care in all the street frontages. We have like really nice tile kind of design for it. And just kind of a nice snazzy look, for lack of a better word, I suppose. Anything you want to add, maybe holistically?
No, I think we got a few elevations and a few other angles to show you guys. Maybe next slide.
So this right here is, so the plan on the left side is a ground floor. So kind of going back to that discussion of that cut through arcade on 6th Street, which is the north side, right? So we have all of our amenities as well as the restaurants fronting that side, 20-foot tall storefronts, right? So just a lot of kind of visuals to that. It's going to be, a number of amenities and nice finishes inside. So you have a transparency, right? Moving up to, so the plan on the right side is the podium level, which is effectively a little bit higher. But that shows that courtyard I was talking about, going from east to west or left to right. And then the south courtyard itself is the pool and spa and, sauna, what have you, right? So really kind of having those looking over the area to the water line and so on and so forth, right? And then units wrapped around, what have you.
I want to reserve one by the sauna.
Yeah, there we go. Maybe you want to talk about.
Sure. So this is this is the previous design from Holland. We think we've improved the aesthetic from the street. We like kind of our use of colors and building materials. We think it's an improvement. Maybe we're biased, but a few of the big moves that we made were we slightly shrank the commercial space. It's really tough to develop in Los Angeles right now, and so much of it is a sort of a combination of like preparing a sort of a good program product, but also kind of making sure you're building the right product to be kind of efficient in your use of cost. So a couple of the big moves that we made on this project is we really kind of shrank the size of the building to essentially kind of make it kind of less overwhelming, I say is maybe a good word. And we've also reduced the parking by reducing 2 levels of parking underground. So maybe the most impactful part of a project development is the parking itself. And the original design from Holland had 3.5 levels of subterranean parking. We've kind of reduced that to 1.5 levels. We think we've made it more efficient. And this was all in an effort to basically make this project feasible to go build. So we've spent a lot of time thinking through that. And as a part of doing that, we've kind of reduced the massing of the building and basically kind of reduced the average square feet on the units. So next slide. I think you'll see that's what we think is an updated and a better angle in our probably biased opinion.
Compare the parking house number quickly, but so it's still going to be 500, even though it's 1.5. Okay, so very efficient.
Very efficient. Same number of units though. Fewer stalls, but we still think a very kind of market parking count for apartment living. It'll actually have more parking than our Vivo and Harbor project. So we're very kind of focused. We know parking is a big sensitivity in the community. Next slide. And then this is, you actually may not be able to kind of tell from the picture, but this on the left was the previous site plan, on the right is ours. The last thing in the world we want is to have empty retail on the street. We think that'd be sort of a nightmare for everybody. The previous design, it is maybe retail wrap around. We have like a 20 to 22 feet high arcade there. So if you go to our project in Vivo Harbor, it's a really nice experience walking down Harbor Boulevard. You know, previous design, they had this big kind of community space, but this was about like 9 to 10 feet tall. So we thought it would feel like a cave and it'd be kind of dark. And they also had their retail mid-block, which we think there are better locations for the retail, such as putting it on the corner, basically fronting the piazza right here. So we basically have worked, and this is honestly we're in the very early conceptual design of the project right now. So a big part of our focus right now is literally working through kind of every inch of this entire kind of fairway here on 6, really kind of connect the piazza, West Harbor, and the promenade itself with kind of the harder shopping down 6th Street. So basically, this is going to be entire, landscaped, well-lit arcade here that will hopefully kind of draw people back and forth between Harbor Boulevard and the heart of 6th Street. I think personally, it's really the right call to put the commercial on the corner. We've had really good success with Colossus right there on 5th and Harbor. And, you know, the only thing that we want to do is kind of recreate that success with probably a different concept 3 years from now when we actually open this project. Next slide. The previous design had their podium courtyard on the 2nd level. So we'll be up a floor and we have elevations that'll kind of show you the buffer on the parking, which basically doesn't allow for any light. So there won't be any of the, street, your floodlights in your car. What are those called? Your headlights. Thank you. You won't be able to see those onto the street because we're going to have a totally opaque material there. Next slide. We are the same height and the same number of units as the previously designed project. Those are units all wrapping a parking garage that again, nobody will see on the 3rd floor. Next slide. On the 4th floor is kind of our big kind of courtyard. What we wanted to do here was kind of get light and air all the way from Palos Verdes through to Beacon. And that courtyard will basically open up on top of the retail frontage and the outdoor seating, and then across the street to the piazza, which we think will hopefully be a really nice connection all the way really to the waterfront. I mean, you might be able to see all the way from the waterfront all the way to the Crown Hotel. Courtyard, pool, we were trying to, saunas seem to be the new hot amenity, no pun intended. So we're trying to, one of the complaints we've been getting from prospects on Vivo is that we don't have a pool and we don't have a jacuzzi because it was just no possible way to fit them. So pool, we think southern facing is kind of the best direction for that in terms of the sun, but I think we'd like to get like a cool sauna amenity because everyone seems to be doing it right now. And that's part of our job is to try to think about what folks want now, what they want 3 years from now to make it a great living experience for folks who want to kind of call San Pedro home. Next slide. This is the rooftop, and then we'll have a kind of a rooftop kind of sky deck up here on the 8th level. Probably have a great view of Tim's office and then the piazza itself. And then of course, USS Iowa and everything on the waterfront. Next slide. This on the left is the previous elevation. North elevation would be the one, hold on.
Fronting 6th Street.
Thank you, fronting 6th Street. So per the CPIO, 60% of our frontage has to be glazing or glass. If you walk by Vivo and Harbor right now, you'll see an awful lot of glass on 5th Street and on Harbor. So we have the same requirement per the community overlay to provide that glazing along, I guess across the four sides of Verdes, Beacon, 6th and 7th.
Yeah. That's also probably pretty desirable, right? What was that for the market you want? Would they want the extra lights and stuff in those units?
100%, though on the ground, we don't have any units until the third floor, so that band that goes across.
Okay.
Yeah, it basically kind of goes on like the pedestrian street.
You have more windows in the Holland side too, right? I'd rather live in the other side.
Yeah, and one of the moves that our architect KFA made, we kind of really like that kind of band going around. We think it sort of sets sort of, it kind of gives like a nice scale feeling when you're at the ground floor and you're walking up the street. It kind of makes you, we think it'll help kind of like connect the building from Beacon all the way up to Palos Verdes. Next slide. This is the south elevation. This is basically if you were kind of where our pool deck would be, you'd be looking right at our pool deck right there. This is the frontage again, I guess, from 7th Street. Next slide.
If that's the front from 7th Street, tell me what's actually the front there? What am I looking at? What am I seeing there?
You're seeing apartments in that kind of band that goes across. And then above it, you're seeing 5 levels of apartments above it. And then you're seeing landscaping on the courtyard on the 4th level right there. Where there's kind of like a void that is like we're looking back. Basically the pool courtyard's like right place on top
I'm
there.
really thinking about, I'm walking on the street. What am I seeing right along there?
You are seeing
At the street level.
tiled frontage right there along, so you've got glass on the 2 corners, and then you've got tiling and landscaping all the way down 7th Street.
And one level up would be units effectively, maybe like 10 feet up. That would be that gray, dark gray bar running horizontal.
How's the commercial side of this?
Well, we're probably gonna have somewhere between, my guess is 1,200 and 1,500 square feet of commercial or retail space that'll be on the corner of 6th and Beacon. So it won't be on this frontage. The only commercial frontage we'll have would be on the corner of 6th and Beacon.
If I could comment real quickly on the architecture. It's interesting along 7th Street, you're facing essentially this Beacon Street City Hall parking lot, but also some very old 2-story commercial buildings there, where Southwest Instrument used to be many years ago. But what I find interesting is with the band, you essentially unify the building and bring it to a height that's level with what's across the street.
We
I mean,
we spent a
it's
lot of
an
time
interest-
with our.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an interesting idea to me because it, whether intended or not, almost mirrors the scale along 7th, which as you go up 7th, the tallest buildings are 3 stories, essentially.
And what's
So-
a real, and our architect and whoever used to work for, where you can really miss, because there's a really big grade change on the site, basically from 7th to 6th. And it basically kind of slopes down kind of towards 6th and then towards 5th. You can really miss at the ground level if you're not super duper thoughtful about it. So we spent 3 hours out there with our entire design team and our civil team, just to make sure, for example, that we don't miss on the retail. Because what you don't want to have is, I think, what's going on at Harborfront across the street, where you've got the ground level of the retail above the street, and it kind of makes it very unattractive. So we've been
hard edge.
It's a hard edge, and it makes it feel inaccessible at the ground level. So we've taken special effort, especially around on 6th Street, on that experience walking up and down 6th, which is really in our mind kind of, it's the front of house for the project. I think Beacon, 7th, and Palos Verdes are kind of call it less front of house, but we want to make sure that it doesn't sort of feel overwhelming when you're on any part of the project. We're not going to have anything in front of us with the piazza. We're going to be eventually at the same scale as the City Hall building, also to the east. Across the street, you've got the homeless housing and the parking lot on 7th, and then will actually be shorter than the Crown. So it's sort of like it almost sort of bends down as you kind of come east towards the water.
Right.
Which I think it'll feel like it's in scale. And if you go by our Vivo on Harbor project, I don't think it feels too overwhelming from the street. We're set back. The arcade really helps in the TPIO frontage.
What's interesting, I mean, 6th is a very narrow street, 7th. You know, it's a very wide street, and 7th is a major thoroughfare, which gets a fair amount of traffic. And there isn't a lot along those first few blocks above Harbor that are particularly attractive. And, you know, until you start to get to the older buildings, well, I wouldn't. Well, having crossed that street a whole bunch of times, going to the Crown Plaza and Main Street City Hall, I won't call it.
But
But-
what I mean is, it's just, I'm just thinking of
Yeah.
the connectivity, because this is a potential redevelopment site.
Mhm.
So the city and the county were looking at a joint partnership.
You're talking
on
about the parking lot.
Parking lot and what is the, homeless housing.
Right.
Yeah, that was gonna be packaged as one joint venture for a redevelopment site. So that's all I had in my mind, and I don't know when they're gonna do that, but I don't know what their front-facing area would be, but that is I don't know if Axel can speak to it, but that was at some point gonna be released is a redevelopment site.
Anyway, I like the way you've got the band there and everything, because it sort of preserves and leads into a lower, a lesser scale of building. And I think it's a nice transition.
No, thank you.
Is that your last slide, or do you have?
We're gonna have a couple more.
Let's finish it, then
Yeah.
there's another question.
That's the elevation from the west from Palos Verdes, so that would be facing the Crown Hotel. And then next slide, that's also where our garage entrance would be. And then this is the east elevation, which is the elevation facing the water. And so that would be on the right side of the screen there. I always get a little confused when east, west, north, south, and kind of which building. That right side would be where the retail is.
Yeah.
And kind of, we would be looking at the retail basically from the perspective of the piazza. So this would be kind of looking at it from the water. And then the next slide. That's it.
I think that might be it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alan Franz.
There we go.
Alan Franz, did you have a question or want to say something?
I'm sorry, I was muted. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, just a couple of comments. First, I wanted to thank you for the presentation. I have a bit of concern for the landscaping. In particular, a number of your slides have palm trees, which are sort of a stereotype, a cliche, but they're not native. They have no habitat value. And from what I understand, they're the #1 cause of street cleanup calls when the fronds fall. And there are alternatives that are at least as attractive as a barren trunk. A second concern relates to the use of space. A lot of people, well, fewer than the old days, but people do still have children and pets. And courtyards are not really playgrounds or places to exercise your dog. They're designed for adults, to accommodate adults. And I wonder what accommodations you may have for children and or for pets, or are they supposed to cross busy streets to get to green spaces? Thirdly, if I understood you correctly earlier, you've reduced the size of the units so that there are more of them and reduced parking. And while that is progressive as we look to a future, probably decades down the road when fewer people have private cars, for the present day, parking is tight. And I appreciate that you are providing parking at all when some other developers don't. But I think it may reduce the appeal of the units. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. So I wanted to touch on the palm trees. So yeah, we're actually not allowed to plant palm trees in
Oh,
LA.
excellent.
For a number of- Yeah, I do apologize. It's the graph layer. We're definitely going to correct. I'll take another look. I do know there's one existing palm tree as a street tree, which we don't control on 6th Street. But in terms of the building itself, yeah, we have a quite stringent water budget in LA and prescriptive planting that we, of course, comply with.
If I may interject for just a moment, as Brian down at the end of the table knows from recent experience, there's a native plant nursery within a couple of miles of the site that can produce a number of different varieties of locally native plants you might consider. From the website pvplc.org, you can see some of their wares, and they're a nonprofit.
So we'll look into that. I go there probably once a month, not more. My wife is a native plant enthusiast. So we're very plugged into that scene, if you will.
In terms of pets and children, I'll say we can't control who ends up renting our units. We're, fair housing. I'd say we usually have something between 15 and 25% of our units end up having pets. I don't foresee us having like a pet litter on that courtyard on the podium. When you do that, it tends to get smelly and isn't super pleasant for the residents there. We don't have a dog park or a dog run planned on this project. I think our expectation is folks will kind of walk their dogs along the promenade. We likely will have like a pet spa so folks can kind of wash their pets after taking them for a walk. I know there's issues in the neighborhood with folks not picking up after their pets. We did, for example, on Harbor, put out a dog poop holder right there, the baggies out there, just to try to help encourage folks to do it. My expectation is we'll do something similar over here. And in terms of children in the courtyard, we haven't programmed our courtyard yet on the 4th floor, but I can assure you it will be safe. It'll, abide by all kind of LA building code rules. My expectation is that we'll have, and we actually put a play area in the last project that we did in Chinatown, but that usually is dependent on kind of who we think is going to live there. We don't have any, no, I think we just actually had to move in today with someone with a child on Vivo and Harbor, but we're paying close attention to kind of who's moving into Vivo and Harbor. It kind of helps us with our programming when we kind of plan a project 1 block away. So I guess I can assure you though, the courtyard itself will be safe and fenced off. No one's gonna, fall off the courtyard from the 4th floor. Hopefully it'll be some sort of nice observation deck overlooking the piazza and overlooking the water. In terms of parking, we are parking to code because San Pedro is actually not in any sort of transit-friendly neighborhood. There actually are not any reductions like we usually take on most of our projects for being near a metro stop. So we're actually parked about 30% more than we're parked at Vivo on Harbor. We actually thought when we bought the original design from Rafi Cohen at Vivo, which is on the project in 5th and Harbor, they only had 100 and roughly 20 parking stalls. We were able, through more efficient design, to kind of squeeze it up to about 140 parking stalls. We're still working through our parking design here. So that will be a minimum number of parking stalls that we provide per code. But I actually do think it's parked at a much healthier ratio than our other project right now. And we really won't find out if we have an issue there until we're at the very end of our lease up. And we're happy to kind of report back on that. But I do think at, 1 stall per bedroom is a pretty good rule of thumb for a developer to park a project. We're not doing things like you're seeing with a lot of the state density bonuses where you can park it at like 0.5 per unit. I mean, we're at like 1.3 stalls per unit and about 1 stall per bedroom.
I have 2 questions.
I have one question before you, Lamar. Hold on. It's Matt Kiocho. Matt, were you ready to?
Yeah, quick question. What is the plan as far as park fees? Is the plan to pay in lieu versus land dedication? Is there a plan in place for that yet?
Park fees, Quimby fees, and,
I will be honest, I don't remember, we're not doing any sort of in lieu fee, and I don't remember which park or impact fee that we are subject to, but we're clearly gonna pay them all. You know, we don't see the direct benefit of that. It's not like we pay for them, then we get more trees in our project.
Yeah.
But, you know, whatever applicable park, Quimby linkage fees that we might be subject to, those are kind of clearly in our budget, but I actually can't recall them offhand.
I can't either. I just know we account for them. I recently actually went through the Rec and Parks.
Doug,
So
excuse me, Doug.
could be a lot of stuff.
Lamar was next.
No, I know. I'm just kind of saying, I get it. There's different fees. It's not just
Doug.
Quimby. Yeah.
Lamar was next.
Okay, I'm sorry for answering the question here.
And the only thing I'll say on that is that I often hear that you pay the fees and then they kind of sit there. So again, we don't actually see the direct benefit of some of those type of fees. It'd be nice actually if you could, you know, pay for it and have it sort of directly impact your project, but it usually doesn't work like that.
They're not high enough, that's why.
How many units is this?
281.
How many are affordable?
There's no affordable on this project.
Why is that?
Because we bought an entitled project that was 100% market rate.
But your Vivo one.
Our Vivo one has 16 affordable.
You're saying of all these, that none of these are affordable.
None of these are subject to an affordable housing covenant.
Okay, next person was Frank Anderson.
Yes, you know, I was disappointed before when Holland came about the parking, a number of units allotted for parking. And now I see this has really reduced them also. And no, you can't control for the type of people who rent your units, but maybe you could start thinking of renting to people that have one car or less. Maybe that would solve the problem. But parking is so bad here already. I would really hope the developers who come in would really put a focus on that. Maybe they have, but to me, as one who uses downtown quite a bit, it's only become worse. Thank you.
Thank you.
The only thing I would say to that is we are producing market rate housing. We're very focused on making sure folks pay a market rent. And in order to pay a market rent, you generally have to provide parking. Otherwise, you'll find somewhere else to rent that if we can't satisfy your parking. What I think we do an incredibly good job of is building projects that meet the needs of the community, meet the needs of the renter, and are actually feasible to go develop and build. So we don't get into escrow on a project and not follow through and not build. We're too busy. No one wants to waste money. So I think what we're really good at is kind of being at the pulse of where we know we can raise money to invest in San Pedro and invest in the community, while at the same time, hopefully delivering a great product that meets the needs of the community, which I think personally will be really improved by having an activated retail store. And I love the Green Onion, by the way. They don't want to stay. I think they want to close down. I think the gentleman he's older, so he's not ready to wait 3 years and then kind of move into a new project. But we're always trying to figure out where to save money, where to spend money, and do things in a way that make it attractive to the capital markets, which is just part of the game, call it. But in order to kind of get the types of projects that I know the community wants in San Pedro, you're always just kind of making sacrifices in certain places and making investments in others. So it's, again, I think we take pride in the fact that if we're going to take a site and control it where the seller of the site can't do anything else. And so they're taking a big risk by making a bet on us that we can actually perform. I like to think that we've got a really good sort of set of talented people that make sure that we build projects really efficiently and to a really high standard. And hopefully, you know, we've only developed one project in San Pedro, but anyone here is kind of welcome to take a walk through Vivo. We're really proud of it. We really do think it sort of enhanced that kind of entranceway into the waterfront arts district.
Javier has a question, and I think we're gonna end this discussion because we have a couple of things on our agenda.
Yeah, just real quick. I think the overall design is very interesting compared to the previous one. While I feel that the previous design was very successful at engaging the street level, it offered more pedestrian interaction. I feel almost like, you know, it's sort of like they turn the back on the street. So is there any way to kind of make that a little more inviting so that it's not just a plain wall as you're walking by?
I probably kind of go elevation by elevation. I think it kind of probably goes back to the same concept of you make choices to spend money in certain places, but not in others. I think probably our biggest commitment from a design and pedestrian perspective is clearly along 6th Street, which I think is kind of the front door into the downtown, and the connection to the park, and the connection to the promenade. I actually think the tile and the landscaping that we have on east is facing.
This is facing the piazza.
This is facing the piazza. I think this will actually look sort of very attractive from the street. And I think having the wraparound retail right there where the glass is on the right will be a really nice feature.
Couldn't there be a connection between the street and maybe that upper level so that the residents could come down to the piazza and have more of a connection to the open space in front of it?
You're saying from the courtyard itself?
Well, I mean, some way for the tenants to come down and use the piazza instead of having to go through the backside.
They'd probably come through the lobby, which will also be right there on 6th Street. I know we do have a stairwell on the exterior that comes down on the south side.
Yeah.
We're in the super early kind of concept stage, and we're still making moves around actually all 4 elevations and the programming on the courtyard. But we're always looking to get a better connection between the residents who are living there and the community. I will say that. So we're probably still in the sausage making phase of some of these amenities. It's a really good comment.
If you have ideas, you might want to email them to them.
Sure.
Diane,
Yeah, Lamar, and then we got it.
I understand. I have issues with this project. This is central. The fact that there's nothing having to do with affordable really concerns me.
Understand where you're coming from. I would say we've done lots of projects in LA with mixed income.
I'm aware of that. We're talking about this specific footprint.
Understood. I'd say if there was a 5-10% affordable component on the project, we wouldn't be able to build it.
Why is that?
Because the rents wouldn't justify the cost of construction.
And Mark, if I could say, I think when the original market rate project was approved, we were looking at mixed income throughout the whole downtown area. And we were looking at some it was pre-pandemic, but looking at some wallets that could economically help support the restaurants and retail in downtown. So we as a chamber are committed to a mix of housing, affordability, and product type. But I think we were looking at the overall map of downtown, looking at One San Pedro, and looking at where at that time where we could help economically uplift retail and restaurant at the time. And I think that's what went into the decision-making pre you buying the project. So it made sense to us.
We bought a pre-packaged sort of set of entitlements. Now, had there been an affordable component, it would basically just mean that we could pay less to buy the project. So perhaps the seller would have sold it.
Well, you might have also gotten some additional heights or more units or some other
If we,
things
if,
in exchange for doing the, which didn't happen because it wasn't planned
it
as
was,
such.
and it was a previous
Right.
entitlement that we
Exactly
bought.
right. Yeah.
So I think we need
Can I ask a
to,
follow-up question, please?
who's this?
Matthew Kiocho.
Matt, go ahead.
Sorry, I know you're trying to get through, but this is kind of important. I know there wasn't any real definitive answer on park fees. Would you be able to look that up and send that to myself and Adrian Gonzalez for our Parks and Schools Committee when you're able to get that information?
We will share with Diana, we have a holistic list of impact fees that we know we're subject to. So we'll share with Diana.
Yeah, I could chat with.
Yeah, we're happy.
Adrian just walked out. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
reason I ask is I'm looking at the chart right now, and non-subdivision is 8,000-ish, non-residential subdivision 16,000. At 281 units, that's almost $2.2 million. So I would like to know if that's going to actually appear, or if there's some other arrangement with the city. That's a lot of money that I would like to know whether or not that's going to be on the table. Thanks.
We will pay all applicable fees that we're subject to. I think we're cutting a check right now for $1 million right now, literally, based on our C of O, like next week on Vivo and Harbor. I will also say, I don't quite know where those fees will go. But we committed to paying them, and we will pay them.
Well, I'd like to make one of the final comments, if I may. I'm super excited for this project because as we attract more and more folks to the harbor area, your corner at 6 there across the piazza, that is going to be the quintessential view corner. So, we're indeed looking to for this project to be, for that corner to really be a highlight as people come off and see exactly what they see, the piazza and then your building. Very exciting. And the last comment is, you have Vivo, how about Viva?
Just kicked off our branding visual identity. I think we're going to be getting name recs next week, so I'll keep you. Besides the.
This is so beautiful and so sexy.
Nothing would be more heartbreaking than not delivering a project with like a beautiful retail tenant. I can't sign off. So we're very, very focused on getting that space just right to make it attractive enough to get somebody. So we're trying our hardest.
Pat, I'm trying to finish this up, Pat.
What kind of income stream or return are lenders looking at these days?
Are lenders looking at?
What do you have to show them in order to be?
Most folks that are investing in development right now are looking for yields in like the 6.5% range per year. So basically, after spending what'll be 4 or 5 years, spending money outflows, by the time you deliver the project and get rents, they're basically looking for the rents minus expenses to be about 6.5% of the total cost of the project. And that is very different from where we were 2 years ago. I will say, we were one of the very final projects that got like commercial financing at Vivo and Harbor. And I think we got lucky that we got started. We closed on the land in March of 2022. If we had waited 6 months, I don't think we would have been able to build the project. And that's because development's really, really hard. And you're really subject to how folks compare real estate investments to bonds. And when interest rates went up so much, it's almost killed development across LA. Not to mention, not to get on a soapbox here, but the ULA tax that went into effect, the mansion tax, essentially made it that we will basically kind of make zero money on Vivo and Harbor because that tax went into effect after we closed on the site. If we had the same affordable requirement on this project that we had on Vivo, we wouldn't be able to move forward. There would be nobody who would allow us, who would invest in us to go spend money on the project.
You got all your construction financing, everything's all lined up?
We're too early right now in construction finances. We probably won't start construction till the first quarter of 2026. So we're gonna spend the next 10 months doing the construction drawings on the project. We have a partner on board, which I will tell you, it's the first term sheet we've gotten for development in 2 years. So it's really, really hard to get people to make these projects happen. And we love having projects with mixed income.
It's not about mixed income, it's about the scaling on an affordable standpoint. I find your response to his kind of been consistent with your ability to say this does not pencil out.
Which part?
Your response to his comment, based upon when you're talking about it did not pencil out, but you're saying you're not even at that stage in terms of figuring out.
We're not at the stage of kind of going out there to procure a construction loan. You usually don't do that until you're a few months before starting construction. We're about 12 months away from starting construction.
But you have some of this feasibility study, do you not to the bank or whoever your financing is?
We've got a partner on board to help us pay for all of these, what are still kind of pursuit costs. We're gonna spend $5 million designing the project so we can go build it a year from now. I'm just telling you, we would not have $5 million to invest if the yield was lower, if we had, unfortunately, because the cost of construction stays the same. Whether we have 100% market rate or 80% market rate, it still costs the same to build. But folks right now, they choose not to invest in development. And I'll tell you, the city of LA is not a target destination for a lot of folks to invest in right now from across the country because they have alternatives. And part of the issue is things like this mansion tax, which is like a real sort of misleading campaign, in my opinion, targeted at single family homes that were priced 10 million and above, but basically destroyed the development community for the last 2 years.
This issue, but I would like to discuss this with you because there's something that's just not clicking.
I will give you my card. Happy to talk about it any day. I'm very passionate about it. I teach a housing class at UCLA. I love housing. I love seeing housing built. And I think the way to get more competitive rents for folks all across LA is basically to have more supply. We've got 10 million people living in LA County. You know how many units we produced last year? About 8,000 total. It's a drop in the bucket, and the only thing that's going to happen is rents are going to go up because you don't have enough supply. And putting a project together like this in the city of LA, I think is a really good thing for LA. I do think it'll be good for San Pedro. Doesn't check every box for every person. We understand that, but I do think it will make a great connection between that piazza and the retail on 6th Street, which is struggling more than I think any of us would like to see.
Right.
This should hopefully be a nice connection there, and all that investment on the waterfront, I do think will spill over.
You've gone into another,
Sorry.
No, this is, you teach that class.
It's a really important,
Yes.
it's a really important
Yes.
topic, and maybe some other time we want
I
to
think so.
have you come back and continue this
Yes.
with the conversation.
This part, because Lamar, I want to tell you, our restaurants are struggling. Our retail is struggling.
That was
You have a restaurant person here, but what I'm saying is that's why the original project was supported as a market rate.
Well, and the sad part moving forward, it'll be really interesting to see exactly what our economy is gonna do. Short-term, mid-term and long-term, just in 2025 moving into 2026 and the economy in general. Because we are struggling, the absolute best of us that know how to do it are struggling all over. So we need this influx of people and money.
You're the restaurant person.
I am the restaurant.
She is.
My 30th, trying to make it work and keep going.
Yes, I would like to end the conversation with Alex. We really appreciated it.
Thank you.
You've opened the can of worms that we've kind of touched on in prior meetings. And I think it really would be good to have you come back sometime and talk more about the.
I want a Zoom link. I want a Zoom link to your UCLA classes so we can.
Always welcome, Public University, happy to. Anytime, so.
Okay, well, thank you. So I want to move on to the next item on the agenda.
Anderson, and then I do the Reardon program, and I do the extension too, so it's fun.
Next on our agenda is any update from CD15 from Axel Palacios. Axel, you're back on board and we're thrilled that you're back. Want to introduce yourself and
Lucky man.
Yes, most definitely. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
yes.
Great. So thanks for having me. This meeting, this first time around in a couple of years. So for those of you that I didn't get a chance to meet in the last couple of years or have joined the boards in the last couple of years, my name is Axel Palacios, and this time around in this iteration of CD15, I am the director of Port and Capital Projects. I am not the planning director. I think that's Pam Thornton that you all have been working with over the last few years, but I am very happy to be back on board. And so the reason I wanted to jump in today is one, I'll be attending regularly because I know that all of the neighborhood councils have a joint interest in development along the waterfront. And so I wanted to give you all kind of an outline of some of the projects that are in my portfolio. Last time around, I was a bit of a Swiss Army knife for the office, and I think that's still kind of the case in some ways. So I do have a lot of our waterfront redevelopment projects that are under my belt, but I'm also working a lot on a few of the major planning and land use developments in the district. The majority of my work is in San Pedro and Wilmington. And then I'm also kind of touching base on some housing and some preservation work. So I can kind of outline some of our public works projects and a few others that I'm involved in, and then open the floor if there's an interest in any of those. And of course, moving forward, I'll be on board quite a bit. This time around, I know that you all had a hybrid meeting set up, and hopefully I get to see you all in person very soon. Since the last time I saw a lot of you, I've became a dad about 4 months ago for the first time, so you can imagine lack of sleep and very much appreciating being able to join online this time around.
Yeah.
So let me jump in, give you all a brief kind of overview of some of the major projects, and then one that I'm going to touch on the most, which is the Vincent Thomas Bridge. That's the one I'm going to provide you the largest update with. But the projects that I'm working on specifically are West Harbor. So I'm working on the city side with Building and Safety, Department of City Planning, basically trying to get the developer through plan check on several phases of the project. The San Pedro Fish Market, of course, is part of that, but is a separate project on its own. And so I'm working on both ends with Building and Safety primarily at this point in the projects. We're still moving along. We've got a couple of issues that we're working through, but overall, the project is coming along, as you all know, and get regular updates fairly on pace. The Alta-C project. So I know that there's been a couple of updates that they're making to their space, specifically the Sirens by the Sea project and Beneficial State Bank, who are also working their way through Building and Safety. And so I'm very much in the mix on those two projects as well, and working on getting the appropriate clearances to get their certificates of occupancy active. The one project that's kind of a major one that is housing related that's been placed on my portfolio is One San Pedro. And so that happened in the last couple of weeks. So I'm slowly getting myself into the mix and reconnected with Alexa and Jenny Scanlon and the entire group. And so you'll hear more regular updates from me on One San Pedro moving forward. And then, two projects, one that I was able to start working on when I was here during the last administration, which is the Piazza. And that project is slated for completing construction in October of this year. And so I'm very happy to see that one through to fruition. And then one that's very new, that if you all are kind of paying attention to council the last couple of weeks, there are two buildings that remain from the original Furusato Terminal Island Japanese fishing village. And we've introduced a motion to explore the possibility of providing those with HCM designation, historic cultural monument designation for those two buildings. And that's going to be moving along in the next couple of months. Outside of those projects that you all are familiar with, PAIP is another that's within my portfolio, and the rest is really a lot of infrastructure work in Wilmington, including the development of a business improvement district, property-based business improvement district over there. So if you like, I can open it up if any of those caught anyone's eye or interest, and then I can jump into VTB because I know that one's gonna run the gamut a little bit.
Can you start just with giving us what you think now the timeline is on the release of the PAIP recommendations?
Yes. So full transparency, we've got the first draft that was sent by Port of LA staff over to our office. And so council member and I have sat down a couple of times to discuss the proposed list. I would say in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll be ready. To be frank, we have a couple of issues we're working through with port staff on the Wilmington side. And so that's the reason we haven't, kind of moved back yet. We're still pushing back and forth on which projects should make that list to finalize it. But on the San Pedro side, it's, a lot of the projects that were recommended and were taken into account look like a lot of what the community had originally wanted. So 2 to 3 weeks, and we should be able to make the rounds and give folks an idea of what's being proposed.
The questions?
Yeah, how can we be in contact with?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, what's your phone number, Alec? Now, Axel, I think is what he wants to know.
My phone number?
Yeah.
I'm based in the San Pedro office primarily, so I'm there 3 to 4 days a week and 1 day in downtown LA. So it's still the office number for the harbor office if you don't have it. It's 310-732-4515. Sounds like I've been here too long if I know it off the top of my head. Pretty sure that's it.
Repeat that again?
I'll put it in the minutes so you can get it.
Diana,
So I'll give it to you after the meeting if you need it.
Diana has all of it, including I think my social security number at this point, right, Diana?
No, that's Musk. He has it.
There you go.
Any other questions for Axel?
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
We can agree on.
Matt Kyochum, unmute.
Thank you. Good to see you, Axel, again. Glad you're back. Would you be able to provide any updates as far as Brewery West? I know they made an announcement that they are closing as of this weekend.
Yes.
Do you have any ideas about what is next for that particular space or ideas that have been floated?
Yeah, so most definitely. So to touch on Brewery West, I came in a little bit late in the process, but we did make a full-fledged effort to work with them and our economic and workforce development department on on an emergency loan at some point. But and I don't want to release too much financial information, just the numbers didn't really work. And there was a lot of capital that was going to need to be invested, and the city's any portion of a city loan, which it was going to be difficult to qualify for, was going to be, not enough to really kind of propel them into the future. And so it didn't really work out, unfortunately. But in terms of future uses, the master tenant over there at Crafted, Wayne Blank and Arun, have been looking at, in the meanwhile, kind of extending special event permits as much as possible, because one of the concerns that we have, and I'm sure the neighborhood has as a whole, is that the site will become deactivated, right? It'll become empty, and that can attract a whole lot of other issues. And so I know that they're looking currently at just some special event permits in the meanwhile. Permanently, no, I think the canvas is still pretty blank. I know that there's obviously kind of food and bar service that are of interest there, but if that's going to be a longer term project, it's going to take quite a bit of work through the Department of City Planning, as well as building and safety, to kind of retrofit that space, and some investment that's going to be required to allow for kind of greater capacity of occupancy there. So those are some of the long term things that are being floated, but canvas is still pretty blank.
Thanks. Appreciate the update.
Of course.
Anything else? Okay, well, thank you, Axel. And again, welcome back.
Yeah, do you guys want a little something on Vincent Thomas?
Oh, okay, yes.
All right, just figured, I know that one's going to be a major one. So I want to be, completely transparent. I know a lot of you on the neighborhood councils have been involved in a few meetings with Caltrans. I've been on, since I've been back since September, probably all the CAC and TAC meetings, along with a slew of other ones that are kind of really specific to project sequencing. And just so you all know, the council member has some major concerns about the current TMP and detour routes that are being proposed, as well as project sequencing. So to give you all some ideas that we've raised with Caltrans, currently they were looking at establishing Harry Bridges in Alameda in Wilmington as their primary detour route. And so their philosophy is they're trying to use the freeway system as much as possible. We don't necessarily agree with that, because we all know that commercial truck traffic and any vehicular traffic in general is going to find the path of least resistance to get out of the harbor area if the bridge is closed. And so our concern number one was, what kind of resources are we placing towards enforcement of those detour routes? Initially, we really weren't happy with Caltrans's kind of play as we go or figure it out as we go solutions. And so we are requesting a set number of officers, CHP, LAPD, Port PD. We're going to be kind of negotiating that moving forward to get a set number of officers assigned to those detour routes and ensuring that enforcement is, you know, kind of heavily regulated. I know it's a lot more focused in Wilmington, but trust me, I think the volume of traffic is going to be so major that it will impact San Pedro just around the bend. So that's one of our concerns. Our largest concern, though, has been the sequencing of the Anaheim Street Widening Project, which is a City of LA Bureau of Engineering project, and the Vincent Thomas Bridge deck replacement, which currently are slated to overlap 90% of the time of the construction timeline, meaning both projects would be happening at the same time for 90% of the time. And that would create a pinch point right within their detour route that would back traffic up even more. And so one point where we're kind of in disagreement and we've requested Caltrans's, basically answering the call that we're making is we've acquiesced to have our widening project go after the bridge project. But we are asking for, construction costs that will escalate, basically like a percentage of escalation costs to be paid by Caltrans to BOE in order to ensure that our project is still viable, because we still need to widen that part of Alameda Street and we still need to reconstruct it to some degree. It's in pretty poor shape. It's like the surface of the moon over there. And so they have so far kind of rebuffed our efforts and stated that there would be, according to their traffic study, minimal impact if both projects go at the same time. All of you that live in the harbor area, work in the harbor area, know that is absolutely untrue. And so just so you all are aware, our negotiations have gone to such a tough place that we have introduced a motion as of February 12th, halting all City of LA permits for their project until we were satisfied with with basically them paying escalation costs for our construction, and until we're satisfied with their detour route map as well as their traffic enforcement map. So we're in a tough spot with them. And I'm having a lot of meetings as well with the goods movement industry, the PMSA, PMA, the locals of ILWU, to really come up with a plan, because there are a lot of issues outside of just the closure. There's an issue, a fear of scaffolding sizes and heights that could possibly, if not properly planned, impede some of the larger vessels from going under the bridge during the reconstruction, which could really affect goods movement. So there's a lot of issues that we believe Caltrans has not been responsive to or planned ahead properly for, and so that's why we're slowing them down a bit. But that's where we are currently.
Thank you. Yes, did you hear that response, Axel? Good for you.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, we don't want to play hardball. I mean, it's another entity, but I mean, if they're not going to listen, then that's the only recourse we have.
Thank you. Okay, not seeing any questions or hands, I will move on to item 5, which is to consider a motion regarding the state density bonus and evacuation routes. This would be a CIS. Thank you, guys. Robin?
Yeah, sure. I'll make it quick. I know it's late, and I'll just assume you all have it in front of you, either on your screen or a piece of paper there. This is these two motions came out of a group called Plan Check. That's a citywide group of neighborhood council and land use people who meet bi-weekly to discuss city planning issues. And also both items 5 and 6 motions were already approved by the Coastal San Pedro Neighborhood Council last Tuesday. This first one, agenda item 5, as you know, you've seen in the paper and whatnot, there's been a lot of concern about inadequate evacuation routes during the recent Palisades fires. And there's already been a motion in the council file. There's a link to it there in on your motion draft. And it's basically saying it's a motion to request the city to support state legislation to amend state density bonus law to analyze the impacts of increased density, additional residents, and what that would have on existing evacuation routes. So that's the essence of it. And then in the second resolved, we're saying that the neighborhood council also requests that the city's resolution be amended to include consideration of the effects of the state density bonus law on areas affected by other types of natural disasters or catastrophic events such as floods, tsunamis, and earthquakes. So that is the state density by evacuation routes motion. As I said, my neighborhood council has already voted on it. I don't know if you guys want to do that today or take it back to your committee.
Let's see what we want to do. Let's see if Northwest wants to act on this tonight or not.
Sure.
You want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll move that we adopt this for Northwest San Pedro.
I'll second. And seconded. We ready? Any discussion? Yeah, I'll call the roll for Northwest. Linda Alexander? Yes. Not here. Pat Nave?
Yes.
Jason Herring?
Yes.
Sam Rampy?
Yes.
Tom Norman?
Yes.
And Diana, yes, so it carries unanimously. Does Central want to do this or take it back? What do you want to do, Lamar?
We'll vote it now. We'll vote it now.
You want to vote on it? Okay. Lisa,
Overall, no problem about.
okay, well, who made the motion first?
I'll make the motion.
Okay,
Okay, Frank Anderson,
Yes.
Dr. Charles David Henry,
Yes.
Lamar Lyons.
Yeah.
Adrian Fernandez, yes. Motion passed.
it was 4 votes, right? Okay, Robin, next.
Okay, very good. So this next one, agenda item 6, is on the housing element and relief from the builder's remedy penalty, I guess you could say. And I believe something to this same effect was already passed by the County of Los Angeles, but it isn't yet been proposed for the city. So we're asking our council member to introduce a measure to city council stating that the city include in its 2025-26 state legislative program support for any legislation that would result in amendments to state density bonus law and housing accountability law, measures to suspend the application of builder's remedy. And that is the penalty for not meeting the housing goals and so forth. I don't know the details of it, but it's it would be very difficult with this additional housing crisis we're under due to the fires. There's new demands placed on the need for more construction workers, more materials, prices are going to go up. Someone mentioned a while ago about interest rates, the mansion tax. So there's just a number of variables that are working against the city's ability to meet these RHNA housing goals. So we're joining in the county in asking that we get relief from that. I won't read all the whereases because I will assume you have it there. And that is the motion.
Okay, any questions for Robin? Northwest, does anyone want to make a motion? Are we ready to vote on it?
Second.
Second. Who made the motion?
Well, I was making a motion. to
Moved to
Pat.
Tom, second and Linda. Pat, did you?
Well, I do have a question. I want to comment. Whatever.
Yeah. Time.
My one concern about it, Robin, is that it looks like it benefits the rich areas that are going to be impacted by maybe impacted by fires, and they're going to be relieved of their obligations or their shared responsibility for creating more housing.
This doesn't change
I think
the,
the city as a whole is not by community. Just
The city as a whole, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, it's the city this applies to the city as a whole, and just because there were fires that burned up Pacific Palisades and Eden, all these different places. The fact of that put a huge strain on the city's ability as a whole to potentially meet these RHNA numbers, and the builder's remedy is a penalty imposed by the state for not meeting those numbers. And so now we've got this natural disaster to contend with, got potentially increased prices. You've got the Attorney General guarding against price gouging like a watchdog because, all this kind of stuff that's happening. And the builder's remedy is basically a punishment for not meeting the goals, but because of these fires and everything that needs to be rebuilt now, that's totally tapping out the resources even more. So we're saying, hey, give us a break from this penalty because we've got all this other stuff to deal with, and it's a citywide break.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
No,
Go ahead. Mom.
how would this impact the demands on San Pedro?
How would it impact the what?
Demands in terms of housing as it relates to San Pedro?
It doesn't impact the demands for housing. What it does is it just, but what the builder's remedy does is if you're not meeting the goals, it comes in and lets a builder develop things that they would not have otherwise really have been allowed to develop just without any public review. So it just, it's a builder's remedy is kind of a punishment for those entities that originally that didn't adopt a plan that was acceptable. Los Angeles has adopted a plan that's acceptable. The concern is that we may have trouble meeting those goals because now there's going to be so much of the resources go into the rebuilding of the rest of Los Angeles that's burned down, that there may not be as much resources. This is a conversation I think we could have been having with Alex. You know, what's going to be the impact on this on the financing, for example, for other projects, the financing because of the fire and all the resources that are going into rebuilding. So that's what this is addressing.
Alan has a question.
Yes, partly in response to Pat's concern about the differential impacts. Noel is correct that this applies throughout the city of Los Angeles. And I would point out that the most damaging earthquake in Los Angeles was in the Los Angeles basin was the Long Beach quake in 1933. And the majority of the structural damage done was in communities in North Long Beach, Compton, Gardena, Carson, and areas that are far removed from the areas that were impacted by the fires, but they would benefit by this modification to the builder's remedy to property development. So it is, I think, a proposal that has wide benefits to a cross-section of the population that may potentially face hazards other than, well, in addition to fire. Thank you.
I mean, my question is, we have Brian at the table with us from Senator Richardson's office, don't you think our state leadership's going to recognize this? I mean, our governor's been here on the ground, looking at the situation. I'm just interested in why at this time we feel we would need to introduce this legislation rather than reaching out to state leadership on how we can put a pause on it or how we address this at a state level versus every different jurisdiction introducing these motions. But that's just me.
I think it's a good idea. Sorry to interject. I think it's a great idea. I've been taking notes the whole time, Brian, first time here. So all of the everything that you approve and discuss, I'll of course take back to the center, but it wouldn't be too far-fetched at all to have that conversation with the center. In addition to that, she has introduced in the direction of the governor as well, just some protections for those that were victims of the fires. But this is, and this I could definitely feasibly see this. The only thing there was the deadline to introduce bills was last week, but there are budget trailer bills, spot bills. So obviously I'm not the ledge person. I have their better team members for that, but I can of course talk.
I just know, and I'll send it to you. I know BizFed is working on a whole list of state bills to help out for fire relief and on all of these issues rebuilding. So I'll send that over to you. Take a look at it.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'll call for the question for Northwest.
Yes.
And Linda, yes. She's the first on the list, but Linda, I got to get to my list. That's what I do. I can record it, I'm sorry.
I'll take the question on the arena numbers.
Yeah.
So for the builders, does the builders remedy kick? I know it kicks in if they don't have an approved plan, right? But does it, if we have an approved plan, does the builder's remedy kick in dependent on how many housing units are built as well?
Yeah.
You know. Robin, I couldn't find that any place when I tried to find it, but that is the concern. And I know that the County Board of Supervisors took a similar motion forward. So I'm assuming that is the case, or they probably wouldn't have taken the motion forward.
Okay.
So I can, but I couldn't,
Right.
when I couldn't find where that, it said that.
It has to do with actual building at some time frame during the housing element cycle. And it's basically streamlining on steroids.
Okay, so Linda voted yes. Pat,
Yes.
Jason?
Abstain.
Abstain. Sam?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yes, and 1 abstention, and it passes. Central, what do you want to do?
Wow.
You can take it up tonight, or you can take it back to your committee, or,
Take it back to committee.
okay. Well, like you. Okay, next on our agenda. Okay, then we have a few other updates of items of interest to the committee. The first one is that Caltrans has got a 110 beautification project, and they're having a virtual meeting on it on March 13th at 11 a.m. The project appears to go from the 91 freeway up to the 605. I will put in the minutes a link to how you can sign up for that if you're interested in that public hearing. The Recreation and Parks Department is doing a needs assessment. Matt, are you listening?
Diana.
Matt's still here, I hope.
Excuse me, wait, will you back, excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My ears just perked up.
Will you describe again, you said from the 91 to 605?
Right, the whole, up the 110 and then over to.
Like the triangle?
It's not the 605.
I mean, 605, the 710?
I'm wrong. It goes up it goes up from the 91 straight up and then across, at some point.
The 710, that makes kind of a triangle
Yeah,
to Long Beach,
I may have misspoke.
more like a trapezoid act.
Okay.
But it goes up slowly from 91 up to 110 freeway, and then it turns.
And will you repeat the date again for me?
Yeah, it's March 5th, Wednesday. Oh, excuse me, I'm looking at the wrong thing. It's
13th. yeah.
March 13th at 11 a.m. And I have the link here, but I'll just have to send it to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Recreation and Parks is doing a needs assessment. And for this area, there's an in-person assessment on Wednesday, March the 5th at the Wilmington Recreation Center, which is on Neptune in Wilmington. It's from 6 to 8 p.m. There's also a way to take a survey that they have that's online at needs.parks.lacity.gov. The survey has both a short version and a much longer version, so you decide ahead of time which one you want to take. This is all relevant to your committee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got the email and everything.
You got it, okay, good. Rancho San Pedro, we mentioned before that they were doing their groundbreaking for the 327 North Harbor project, and I brought back some pictures of the project. English on one side, Spanish on the other. If people are interested in seeing what that project is going to look like. There's more if we need them here. Court meeting, Thomas, want to report on?
Quick update if people are interested. They gave the air quality monitoring update. I can share those slides in the minutes if you want. Vincent Thomas Bridge update. Community investment grant update, just get the word out, the community investment grant, due date's coming up soon, so that probably be of interest. Little discussion of the hydrogen hub. And then I had to go teach a class, so I don't know, did you stay for the whole thing? Oh, Elise.
I,
I can't remember.
well, no, I will tell you the one thing I remember in particular. By the way, on the Port Community Grant thing, one of the things they mentioned were the folks who serve on the group that selects the awardees, and I recommended that neighborhood council people should be added to that group. We'll see what happens. No, the one thing that there was a report on the public access investment plan, and I had asked if anyone had looked at Tim McOscar's port charter reform motion that he submitted to the city council a couple weeks ago. Actually, I think February 9th, I saw it. And a big part of that motion would take the PAIP process and potentially put it in the city charter, which is an interesting move. But I recommend everybody takes a look at that.
Do you know the file number?
Not offhand, but
Can you find it?
I emailed it to Elite after the meeting. And I sent it to Augie thinking he was gonna send it to everybody, and he didn't.
Can you send it to me, Scott?
So.
Just send me the council file.
Oh, that's good.
He's gonna go.
Yeah, well, it is. Yeah, the most interesting thing was watching the people from the port look at each other going, what?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I missed that one.
Yeah, but pay attention to those motions. Because charter reform will come eventually. Yeah.
Interesting. Wait, any other updates? We'll see if Elise has any others.
That's about it.
But in the meantime, while we're waiting for her to come back, public comment on items not on the agenda?
We could comment on the meeting with Stefano Ronzini that we went to, on Outer Harbor and the Harbor Bit. I guess just report that he met with Northwest San Pedro folks, on Monday, I believe we had lunch, and, did a good overview for people who haven't heard that presentation. I've been encouraging Stefano, have you seen you at any of the meetings that Stefano's had from former SAS? No, it sounds like it respects what the Alliance is trying to do, and I thought it was pretty gracious in this time. Maybe it's over an hour just for us to ask questions about what their plans are, if they are the successful bidder for the Outer Harbor project.
I do have one.
If they are, we will invite them to come and give a presentation.
One very quick note on the San Pedro Library. The tentative opening date is March 30.
Another month?
Well, the last update I got from my daughter was they're replacing damaged ceiling tiles. The problem is they're all, well, how old is that library? 35 years old, trying to find, 35-year-old building materials isn't necessarily the easiest thing. But it should be a very different experience for everyone. It's nice. I can't eat.
The old ones that are
Do you know the file number?
It's not on there.
Yeah, it's not on here, no. Yeah.
It's not.
Oh, yeah, okay, because the city clerk adds it later. Yeah, this.
They never have them initially.
No, this is because this is from Tim's office.
Yeah.
Building is pretty.
Yeah, they have that.
CD 11.
We'll
find it.
We'll find out.
Yeah, I question now.
All right.
And I probably look it up right now.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else before we adjourn?
Let me hold it up.
Yes.
Hi, so I'll just give a brief report because I know it's kind of late. Also just for future, I would love to come to these meetings more regularly. If you want to make like government updates as part of the, because I didn't want to interject either as well. But first and foremost, hi, Brian Martinez. I serve with Senator Richardson's office. We've been in office, well, she's been in office for about 3 months now. I've been working for her team for about a month and a half. So just, again, top of mind updates. So 2 things regarding Vincent Thomas Bridge. Seems like most of it was already covered. We stand parallel to a lot of the discussions that have been brought here today, along with Assemblyman Gibson's office. It's just, we want there to be a collaborative process within this because it seems like you're just butting heads. So we're just trying to find a symbiotic middle ground to make sure that A, it's efficient, and B, it's affordable as possible.
And we can get it done before the Olympics. That's my only concern.
That seems to be the bench that everybody's shooting for, so
Yeah.
that's remaining. The second thing was regarding North Gaffey project. So I was able to get in contact with our, the chief deputy director that, that had something to do with the permitting process with the Port of LA. So now they're in direct communication, the project manager and the Port of LA. I don't foresee there being a further delay, given that they're talking to each other now, so I'm really optimistic that we're gonna get that extended and then finalized. Last thing, I kept, like I said before, the policy and leg deadline was last week. So I have some bills, if y'all are interested, we can talk about it later because there's 19 of them. But some of them are regarding medical access, obesity treatment, different notification levels for report emissions, small business contracts, having state incentivizing the state to require at least 25% of the contracts to be go to small businesses. I can go in on this for a while, but if you want any information about any of the bills, I can email it to you, the list, and then from there you can ask directly.
And I'll send it out.
That'd be great. Okay.
And if next time you want to send a list ahead of time, then people could be prepared to ask questions on it.
Absolutely. And bear in mind though, that most of these are pending, they gotta go to committee, then they get voted on, then they go to the assembly. So, just the process, right? I'll keep everybody appraised as the process develops, because I don't expect y'all to be, looking at these meetings all the time, but just know that I'm here to kind of answer any questions, whether it's bureaucratic or, anything at all. So yeah, that's about it.
We're particularly interested in legislation that has to do with housing and land use.
We'll talk, yeah.
And let us know if you can come, because we'll put you on the agenda right at 4, right, with the congressional, with the with Tim McCosker's representative, so we do that elected official.
I plan on being more present at the neighborhood meetings after May. I'm just finishing up my master's program, except Tuesday nights seem to be really popular with my class, so I will, as soon as that's done, I'll be more present, I promise.
We appreciate you being here. Thank you.
And I do have that council file number.
Wait. What was the release?
25-0118.
0118. Thank you.
You are welcome. This might be a good one to agendize. This is interesting.
Yes, I think.
That's why I raised it.
Doug, because I missed this one.
All right.
Put you on the computer.
With that, the meeting stands adjourned.
All right.
So